What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets. We're going to be talking about this little slate. I'm still unsure if I'll be available for live. I've tweaked something in my arm, so I've got to get that checked out. Not a great night for me last night, NBA wise. It was actually good on DraftKings, really bad on FanDuel. Sheets, I'm guessing it was similar for you based on our conversation.
Yes, I did okay on DraftKings. I finished. I finished my games early, sort of like you did. I was several spots behind you, so you probably did a little bit better than min cashing. I think I straight min cashed in the DraftKings one. On FanDuel, I went for it. I went for the 1,500, and I was going to play Lowry Markkanen before the what's his name got ruled out, and then when he got ruled out, I figured, oh boy, it's probably even a better play, and he didn't do much. And then
they won by like 700 points also.
Even still, I mean, he wasn't doing it. And then and Lowry was not a lot of fun. And then even still, I had some chances because I had Sengun, I had the raw points out of Jokic, and then I needed Jaren Jackson Jr. to just kind of have a decent game, and he kind of got phased out in the second half pretty much. So that was the end of him. And that was the end of my FanDuel. But I'll tell you something else that I did. I probably should talk about this offline more. And, I actually went and I looked at a couple of old poker videos that kind of ran across that I made. And one of them I was found really, really interesting that I want to post in our Discord because I think it's relevant. But I did notice is the pop and the energy in my voice as I was going through my videos. I'm like, what happened to that? Like, to that energy and pop. And I'm going to bring a little more of that, hopefully, back to DS. But the thing I wanted to bring up is, especially with NBA, because NBA can wear on people after a while because there's action every night. There's a lot of variance every night. There's frustration every night or whatever it is. And, you see that throughout all the community, through the Discords. Oh, I can't win. I can't do this. I'm on a downswing or whatever it is. And one thing that this poker video I made kind of reminded me was that sometimes when you kind of go on a weird run or whatever, it's not usually about doing things that you need to do things that much more different, or you need to go, be a little crazy. You go back and say, okay, go back to fundamentals, right? What am I doing? What is my process? And you'll find that usually it's just kind of requires you to come back to original process. I made kind of the golf analogy, like I made this video. I just kind of lost my club championship, and because it made me think of it, is usually when you have a kind of a bad golf, it's not because you're hitting some crazy shot poorly. It's just because right back to your grip and stance, right back to your fundamentals. And likewise in poker, when people start to go on downswings in poker, if you go back to fundamentals and say, okay, what hands am I playing? You know what I mean? How am I playing those? As opposed to how am I playing these ridiculous situations I get into, right? I think you do really well. And likewise with daily fantasy sports, if you're kind of on a downswing, you're kind of worrying what your process is like, go back to your fundamentals. Like what kind of guys are you playing? How are you putting lineups together? Instead of boy, I want to get Galaxy Brain and play 5 guys I've never heard of in case 3 of them hit, whatever it is. Maybe your downswing is because you're becoming too fancy and too off the board, and you need to go back to fundamentals and make sure that you're doing things the right way. So I don't know. I just think it was food for thought that I was kind of throw out there.
No, I think that's great. I think it's really an important point, and we should always be thinking about that. And one thing I've done differently, and I will start placing these bets more often once I can legally do it out through DraftKings. It's just much easier for me. But I was 9 of 10 yesterday, and actually would have been perfect.
What?
Yeah, I had Cleveland to cover versus. I'm looking at my numbers right now. I had Cleveland. So you guys really should take advantage and take a look at these bets, because my NBA bets have been unbelievably hot. It's like really like close to 80% now. And then the prop bets have been unbelievable. The one Middleton over on points, that one would have been canceled because they don't. If you're not playing, they cancel it out. But I had Cleveland to cover versus Houston. Cleveland and the Houston under. The Lakers to beat Dallas. Milwaukee to beat Indiana. Utah to cover versus the Clippers. Holiday over on points, Portis over on points, and Brunson over on points, assists, and rebounds. The only one I got wrong is I don't believe Brunson was over on rebounds. I think it was 3.5 and he had 3. But every other bet wins. So that would be pretty valuable stuff. So I just wanted to plug the site a little bit, take a look at this stuff, because these bets have been really, really good, especially in the NBA. So
And where do you find those, under bets of the day?
Yeah, bets of the day. And I'll put them up there. You know, I don't bet every game, and I'll put everything up there. I put the ones I like the best, and those were my favorites. So yeah, it was
Now,
pretty.
is bets for the day, is that free or for premium?
No, it's for premium.
Good.
You have to be a member for that one. Yeah.
Good.
But it's been, I mean, it's been really, really on fire. And we even had the long shot touchdown prop bets. The last two I had on the Monday Night Footballs. We had the weird guy who's, you know, the 10-1 score touchdown. So let's keep it going. Anyway.
You know what you should probably do? Maybe talk about this offline, whatever, but you know what Big Al would do, and is that he would put, you know, kind of at least like one bet like for free for people.
Right.
And then, like, if you wanted to get like all of them, or, you know, like the best ones or whatever it is,
that's true.
We have to be a premium member. Maybe we should do that. Like just have like don't call it your best bet, but call it like one bet.
Yep.
Like one good bet or something.
No, I'm happy to do that. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So let's jump in. With that said, you know, I think this is good, like general stuff that we need to touch on, but let's get into this little 4-gamer and figure out, like, you know, while we don't want to play everybody we haven't heard of and everything, this is the kind of slate where you're probably going to need to do that to get different enough.
This is crazy. You get like you got David Duke, you got Alan Kessler. I mean, you got all kinds of people from like all different walks of life playing these things. You have I don't know, but to me, it's a 4-game slate that there's, and obviously it's not going to necessarily work out that way. But it looks like there are only like 10 guys I want to play on like the whole slate. So that's all.
Makes sense. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I think
like one game, or maybe two. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, this is the kind of slate where we might have to consider a guy like Josh Jackson. Like, seriously, like that's the kind of thing that could win you a slate, because it is pretty obvious what to do elsewhere. So let's talk about the first game with the Detroit and in Indiana, because I know you only talk about having those guys, but I think there's somebody's going to get going in this game. There's just too many, you know, too much missing, I guess you'd say. Frank Jackson's playing minutes. Sadiq Bey is really cheap. Hamidou Diallo has upside per minute. I don't know, man. I'm kind of just probably leaning towards Frank Jackson or Josh Jackson as a long shot tournament play. And it's not nothing beautiful, but that's what I've got. I mean, Sadiq Bey, I think, is probably the most viable, and Frank Jackson probably the second most viable. But I think, I don't know. I sort of like on these weird slates to play the guys with the massive ceiling and just sort of hope that they play well enough to get themselves some run. Because it's going to be pretty obvious what everybody is doing. Take it away.
Yeah, so I'm not really doing much on Detroit, except, you know, maybe Cade is always somewhat viable regardless of price, I guess. But I would like to take this opportunity to point out a couple of Indiana things, because this is I think the one team in the one spot where there's the real discrepancy between DraftKings and FanDuel. So like I have the Indiana guys extremely playable on FanDuel, Brogdon, Sabonis, and Turner for that matter.
Yeah.
And the only guy I really have mildly playable on DraftKings is Turner. So that I just figured I would take the opportunity to point that out. So look, if you want to play these guys on DraftKings, that's fine. But FanDuel, they all rate to be much better. I'm probably avoiding this game. I mean, you could do it. I mean, you could play Cade with Brogdon and Sabonis or something like that. But, you know, it's I mean, you just get a lot. I mean, to do that. But on FanDuel, I think all those guys are valuable. And LeVert on FanDuel is more viable than DraftKings as well. So that's the note I made on this game, is just to point out that Indiana on FanDuel is just much better than on DraftKings.
Yeah, I have a feeling, not 100%, but that's, you know, with the back-to-back and a pretty soft matchup, it seems like in time for Indiana to rest someone. So we're probably going to end up changing our mind on this one.
Well, that could be interesting then.
Yeah, I think Chris Duarte, as it stands, is a terrific play, and I almost hope nobody's ruled out, because he's the kind of not long shot, but guy who's probably going to be the 10%-ish owned range. And he can put up 40 fantasy points if he gets hot. His minutes projections at 27, that could easily turn into 34. It just depends on the night you catch him. So he's a rookie. He's going to have ups and downs. I think he's a really, really interesting play at low ownership. And that's all I'm looking for, because we have the obvious guys we'll talk about in the next game. But I really think Duarte is a really strong, long, like not even large field. I think he's just a good tournament play. Pretty much every day, I think he's a good tournament play, but especially on the small slate when he's going to be low owned. So I have he and Bay. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to transition to the next one. So I actually only have I got to get some clarity, because in the Brooklyn game I actually have 6 guys projected. So I got to come up with the other guys. I don't have any projection yet on Thomas, or I know there are 8 guys, right? There's one guy I'm just missing. I don't know. Maybe you can remind me of who it is. But so I have the guys as eligible to play. I have that I have projections for. I have Durant, Claxton, Duke, Edwards, Mills, and Griffin. So that's 6. With Thomas makes 7. Can you think offhand of who I missed?
Deron Sharp.
Deron Sharp, he's the 8th?
That's who I have as my 8th, yeah.
Okay. He's the guy I got to get a projection for. Okay. So basically the idea is, I mean, you've got 8 guys eligible. I mean, you just gotta play them. I mean, they're just gonna eat up the minutes, and that's just the way it's gonna be. So Durant, the raw points is just way too important to ignore. And then this is my order. I have Claxton, Duke, and then Edwards, Mills, and Griffin. But I don't know who Sharp is. I didn't project him, and I didn't get anything for Thomas yet. Thomas was the bust in the last game. So maybe you could make the case that maybe you could play him this time. I really didn't look too much into it. I just know that you're going to have to play a bunch of guys in this game. And hey, I mean, nice and easy if you want to do it. Just play Embiid on the other side, and then you're done with your slate. I mean, if you want to do that, and play Embiid with 5 Brooklyns, and fill in with whoever, and you're off to your cash lineup, I suppose. I guess that's the way it's going to be. So that's my initial take. I mean, tell me about Deron Sharp, if that's his name. Tell me about Thomas. What's your view here?
I think Sharp could play more minutes tonight because they're gonna need size against Embiid, and I don't know if Claxton can physically play it long enough. But that would be one way to go. My initial thing is just to go right back to Cam Thomas and ignore what happened the other night. Okay. Look, we're playing tournaments here. We're not playing the best likelihood. When you have the other guys are going to be 30% owned, and Cam Thomas is going to be 3% owned. Right. Let's just play Cam Thomas. There's no reason it couldn't go the other way. He's actually a better shot creator than any of these other guys are. So and if they need offense, he can actually do it. It's just he doesn't blend necessarily as well with the Mills Durant thing. And Kessler Edwards had a monster game the other night. I mean, he was 1% owned on a 3-game slate, right. And at 3K. I think Claxton.
And an 8-man.
Yeah, exactly. I think Duke is going to play as many minutes as he can handle. I think Edwards seems like he would, but those minutes either one of those guys could shift to Cam Thomas. So that's what I'm going to do. Priorities is hard to do because if we're talking about for cash, it would go Durant, Duke, probably Edwards, Claxton, Edwards, and then Blake Griffin. But if you're talking about trying to play for tournaments, you should put Cam Thomas and Blake Griffin a little bit higher on that list, and potentially Deron Sharp. Like there is a potential that you get foul trouble on Claxton. He ends up having to play the bulk of the minutes. They're going to play a big all the time in Philly for all 48 minutes, assuming that Embiid will play it. I think he will. It's a nationally televised game. And then you run it back with Embiid. But I think you do want to play at least 3 of the Brooklyn guys. And for me, I will probably force Cam Thomas to be one of them, play Kevin Durant, and then I will play Claxton or Duke and Edwards, Duke or Edwards. That's the way I'm going to try and do it for tournaments.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, New York and Houston. It's so weird because we had like these exact same situations with all these underpriced situations and all that stuff. I will just maintain that people are not going to play Emmanuel quickly, and I think it is going to be the right thing to gamble on him. And sometimes in these spots, he can shoot himself into a big game. Missed shots the other night, so he didn't quite get there for me. He was still in my lineup that was winning the tournament until the overtime of the Portland game, but. I think he's interesting. I think Derrick Rose at his price is fine. I don't know if we need to do that. So I don't know. I'm sort of stuck on the Knicks because I feel like everybody's going to play. Well, everybody wants to play Rose and Burks to match with the Brooklyn guys, and I'm just looking for something to do a little different. So that's why I was looking at Quickly, and I also considered Noel as well as Mitch Robb, but I think Noel would get the slight boost between the two for me. How about you on the New York side?
Randall, Rose, Burks. I mean, for me, it was nothing particularly fancy. Burks, another one who on FanDuel is kind of a standout, I guess, type play.
Yeah.
So well, you hit the nail on the head in that the Brooklyn guys are mostly front. Well, Claxton's a front court guy. So if you want a point guard, you play Rose, along with those guys. But yeah, Randall, Rose, Burks. I didn't quite see Quickly first go round, so maybe that's a sharp play, like you were saying. Maybe to go ahead and play Quickly like that. As far as Houston, so remember, I mean, last night they lost by 100, right? So it was really a question of who got that blowout run, and Sanguine got it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sanguine played the full amount or whatever it is. I had to get a good game out of the Josh Christopher. He did nicely. He played 27 minutes, got 25 fantasy points.
Yeah, that's not happening again.
I don't think that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I don't think that's well. I mean, let's look at this. So 27 minutes. He
played 27 minutes because they were down by 40 points.
Right. So I'm just looking at the way.
And Eric Gordon's coming.
1 for 4. Yeah. Okay. So we'll give him 20 to 22 minutes then. So he's not going to be as viable. Sanguine, I guess he remains. I'm pretty confident in that. I'm not worried about him playing a back-to-back. I wouldn't imagine. So I like him. I do think that if you want to fade him, I do think that you could play Tice this time, just to zig and zag or whatever. And then the guy who I think remains kind of viable every day is the Tate for Houston, and maybe especially on FanDuel, Armani Brooks I had over there also. So I think all these guys are pretty good.
Yeah, if Eric Gordon's back, he's probably my favorite play.
Okay.
But I don't know. Like it seems there's enough bodies they sort of have to throw around, and they're playing Augustine and minute. They just play a lot of guys, a lot of minutes. And I really think that the Christopher thing was a good example of just complete, absolute, only massive blowout. Like he was going to get run, but he wasn't necessarily going to get that much run. So that's why I don't want to go to that kind of a thing. Eric Gordon has actually played really, really well lately. And assuming this game, which should stay closer because the Knicks have not been very good. They're at home. Houston's at home. We only have a 5-point spread here. So I'm kind of into the idea of maybe playing Sengun with Gordon, probably avoiding Tate on DraftKings because of his price, but I don't think it's the worst idea to play him. And if you do, again, another guy who got there in the blowout minutes was KJ Martin yesterday. Probably not as good of a play today with Gordon if Gordon's back. Now, if Gordon's out again, scratch everything I said. You can take shots on Christopher and Augustine. And also, there's much more likely this game doesn't stay close. Keep an eye out for the starting lineup. I agree with you. Tice is the pivot off of Sengun that I would look at. But I think Sengun is the guy you want to try and play. He's pretty phenomenal per minute, this guy. He's
good.
I think he's good. Really, really, really good. Like, I mean, there's people in the draft who were talking about years from now, they're going to say this guy should have been the top pick. I don't know if I'd go that far yet, but he is really, really something. So I love Sengun. Sengun and Quickly is a long shot play, a little bit of Eric Gordon, and then you have to plug in some of the Burks and Rose stuff, but I just don't think you need to do it at that ownership. So that's what I'm doing with this game.
I will say a couple of things. They did, Sengun did, he is up $1,000 to 5,545. The other thing is that he was only having what?
Go ahead.
Oh, he was only having just kind of an average, if not maybe even below average game at halftime. A lot of that stuff came after the game was pretty much over. I'm just kind of throwing in like a little devil's advocate, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, people see the 46 fantasy points. There's got to be a lot of recency bias embedded in his ownership somewhat.
But without Christian Wood, he's right. He's like averaging around that. You know what I mean?
No, I get it. Not
the first time we've seen this story before.
I get it. But 30 fantasy points at 5,500 isn't gonna win. So we'll see which one shows up.
Yeah. I think I agree. I mean, I understand what your point is. I think it's good to try to find new ways to fade the chalk. He's the one I happen to like a little better, and also it's a tough matchup. It's not like a great interior matchup for him. But all right, we'll talk Washington and Phoenix. Another one where you just keep an eye out to see Again, we're probably not going to know because the game is a little bit later than the other ones, but just the back-to-backs, you always want to keep an eye out and make sure you're ready for it. What I have is in this game is pretty low interest in everybody. I don't really see the reason in a tough matchup. I also am this will be one of my bets of the day that Phoenix covers this 8-point spread. I think Phoenix crushes them here, assuming that everybody plays and whatever on the Phoenix side. My highest level of interest would be a Harrell or a Gafford. I don't really think you need to play anybody else. All these projection things are just nuts. Now, normally I would say, hey, KCP, when he's going to be the unowned value, because there's all this other value. I always that's like the one time I like to play KCP. Never like to play him with any sort of ownership whatsoever. But this he's going to be owned tonight. So I sort of lose my interest in that whole play. I think that with no, why can't I think of the point guard's name? Dinwiddie. I think you can make an argument for Aaron Holiday at low ownership. We just have seen that story a million times before also, or Neto. I just don't feel like I really want to get heavily involved in it with the other value we have. However, you could get, if you end up playing a couple players from this game, it could end up paying off for you because you might get some late news, which is what's going to happen. And I honestly, guys, we have to take advantage of these slates as much as we can, because I don't know how much longer we're going to have an NBA season for without at least a break or something, because there is too much of this COVID going around. And basically every expert I listen to is pretty sure, or seems pretty confident that there's going to be some sort of a delay for at least a significant number of teams, so similar to what the Bulls are having. So that's just throwing that out there. But you're also going to get, 9 guys after lock on big slates that are going to test positive for COVID that we didn't know about. I'm not very interested in this last game in general. So maybe you have some stuff that I've been thinking.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, that's an interesting note. One of the only other things I did okay, I ended up getting lucky with KCP last night. And the only reason I say I got lucky, what if I told you that KCP was 4,100, he would score 26 fantasy points and go 0 for 2 from 3? I mean, you know what I mean? Like he got a very, an outlier 7 rebound performance. You know what I mean? Like he got 2 blocks. I don't know. So
that's matchup in basketball. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to go to that. And I agree with you. I mean, on one thing, I mean, this is what Washington's done. Washington was at home and then they traveled one day off to Denver and then they're at Sacramento and now they're back to back at Phoenix, like their 4th game in freaking 6 nights. And they're going to get blitzed. Okay.
Yep.
They're not going to be involved in this game in the 4th quarter, nor might Phoenix. So I'm inclined to fade this whole thing, honestly. And I wouldn't go back to KCP on a back-to-back either. So I'm literally at 0 in this game.
But maybe we could speculate on Neto and Holiday because they're going to be lower owned and they're going to play minutes. And who knows, maybe KCP ends up getting ruled out. You know what I mean? It's not out of the question.
And maybe Neto gets mop up in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, exactly. And then or Aaron Holiday can occasionally have those, one quarter where he looks like he's like the best. He looks like his brother Drew looked last night.
Right.
And then the only thing on Phoenix for me was Crowder. Do you have anything on Phoenix that you're interested in?
Payne, maybe.
Yeah.
CP3, maybe, but this isn't a game that he's gonna. You know what I mean? Like Ayton should probably sit this. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or somebody. I mean, that's the thing. I don't want Chris Paul to freaking sit and then have Payne be like 80%. You know what I mean? Like I don't want that either. Maybe that's the idea, is just to play Payne. Maybe that's the idea. Yeah, and he'll probably stay in regardless, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe that's my favorite play from this game.
I prefer him if he. The problem I have with him is just that he's going to be fairly high owned, and I could play. He did play a ton of minutes the other night, but remember that was on a back-to-back. He played a lot against the Clippers night before that though too. So
I don't know how old he can be with those Brooklyn guys.
Yeah, but you know what though, he can get 30 plus here, and it's interesting enough. I'm okay with the Payne thing. I just don't like that he's going to be popular.
Yeah. No, but you think he's going to be popular? I mean, like, what position are people going to play him? Maybe the point guard position.
Pointer shooting, I mean, because you've got the Duke. And I don't know. It's nobody's going to play Cam Thomas. So, I mean, he's put up 30, 28, and 23 in his last 3 games. It's not the most exciting play, but if we do play the blowout angle, that should have a lot to do with him, right? So maybe there's some upside from there. The only thing that mucks it up is you get Elfrid Payton in the backcourt also stealing some minutes away or some usage away. if you're playing 1,000 lineup, you're literally playing 1,000 lineups. Maybe that's something you could do that's really weird, is play Alfred Payton. Of course, every time I keep saying this, I said it yesterday about Mo Wagner, and he went nuts. You know what I mean? Every now and then it actually works out.
I have another play. I got one more.
Okay.
I have a play for a guy who played 30 minutes last night and had 4 fantasy points. If you're gonna play these Nick guys, how about like kind of a disgusting Evan Fournier? I mean,
I thought about that one. It's just so hard for him to his ceiling. I feel like it's easier.
Ceiling. I'd like to hit him to his floor. I mean, he hasn't even hit his floor in like 7 games. I think.
I know. In the one game where he was like 3,900 and he put up 28 fantasy points, and he played 36 minutes. Like, it just is. I thought he's having this great game and all this stuff, and you look at the end, 28 fantasy points. We don't really need that for 4,900.
No thanks. Oh,
but I did consider that one. I think I
was
would.
A terrible play. Look at this guy.
But what about Noel and Mitch Rob if we're going to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a little bit more interesting? Because these guys can at least put up a number, especially Mitch Rob. I mean, we see it all the time. And off the bench, no one's going to play him. Like, I don't know.
So here's my take regarding what you said about the cancellations. I mean, just rumors. I've heard rumors to the opposite in both basketball and football.
Well, it's already happening though in basketball.
Well, right, but from what I'm hearing, okay, is that the next move is going to be the opposite. They're just gonna give in. They're just gonna say unless you're sick, we're not going to do. We're not going to ban people from playing.
So they're going to let the guys play with the COVID.
I think so.
I think that's next year, but I hear you. That makes sense to me, and I'll take your word for it because I think in the football too. I mean, like football, they're going to let it happen. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I think they're going to say, or they're going to make it look good. They're going to say, you know, we're revisiting our protocols. Asymptomatic, vaccinated, you know, we're not going to get tested unless they show symptoms and stuff. They'll make it look good, you know, whatever it is. So I think next move is going to actually result in more people playing, whether you think that's appropriate or not. I think that's going to be helpful.
Well, no, I agree with you. I mean, I agree that it's going to go one of those two ways because something has to happen, right?
Yeah.
I think they were hoping to make it to the All-Star break, though, at least maybe they'd have some time to figure it out because it's kind of hard on a daily basis to try and keep track of this stuff. But
yeah, it is. It's kind of nuts.
All right. Anyway, so we'll get out of here, guys. There was a lot of stuff that wasn't all basketball related. I'll try to be with you guys later today on live. It's going to be a little tricky. Just depends on what happens with my arm here. So
the good news is worst case I'm here and it'll be a trivially easy slate. For me to handle.
Well, we've got a good Thursday night football game, so we can talk about that maybe a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. All right. Well, we'll be back with a football video shortly. Good luck to everybody out there, and we'll hopefully see one of you guys at the top of the leaderboards tonight. Good luck.